Good evening, everyone. I've always thought that Whistler Community Services acts like the weather vane of Whistler. Our clients, those most vulnerable in the community, are first affected by any social challenges and are the last to recover. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a history of what we've been seeing in visitations to come and see us at Whistler Community Services. One of the services we offer is outreach services, and we've been seeing a trend of one-on-one meetings increasing over time. We would like nothing better than to have our services obsolete and for the community not to need us, but what we've been seeing is a little bit of a trend on the upswing. Our numbers this year are similar. This is the last fiscal year, and we're coming up to the end of our fiscal year, and what we're seeing is a similar amount of visits, but we're seeing the severity of those visits increase. So we're seeing more suicide, more sexual assault, more drug and alcohol use and abuse. So we're starting to urbanize, and I think that as we get bigger and as we start to attract easier access to Whistler and that day visitor, we're starting to get to see city-like challenges in our community where we really haven't seen those before. The top reasons for people coming to see us generally are mental health, financial, emotional support, and housing has popped on there the last couple years. For the food bank, we're actually seeing a trend down with this number. So this number has gone down 20% in the last year. We do this on a calendar year, so we do have these stats are currently up to date. And this 20% downward movement is fantastic. And what we attribute it to is that people are here and they're employed. And even that vulnerable sector that may have been challenged finding employment in the past, they're starting to get jobs now. We're also finding that with the housing crisis, we can call it crisis, I guess, right now, is the housing crisis is people would come here, and if they can't get secure housing, then that's usually the ticket to leave. But if they can secure some sort of housing, they can get work. So in the past, it used to be that if you got work, then you stayed. But now, if you get a house, then you stay, and you can generally find work. The number one reason for visiting the food bank is injury or illness. So, and this is usually surprising to people because what happens is that a lot of people here are living paycheck to paycheck, and everything is great until you get injured, and now you don't have that traditional support network in the community with extended family, and things can spiral down pretty quickly. So what does our future look like, and what do we anticipate coming down in the next couple of years from a social perspective? What I always found amazing about Whistler is the three user groups that come here have these incredibly different agendas. So we've got tourists who come to have a wonderful experience. They're here for a short time. They're here for a great time. Maybe they've saved their money for a long time to get here, and they're really here to live it up and take advantage of everything that we have to offer. We've got our seasonal workers that are, a lot of them, flying out of their home for the first time. They're coming here to really test their adult wings and get a feel for decision making. Some of their decision making is good, some of their decision making isn't so good. And then we have our Whistler locals, the people who come and stay and make this their home and create a community and make this place run. And those three agendas are so different. And in any other place, they wouldn't exist. But we don't get what we get here without those three agendas working beautifully together. And so in order for our community to be healthy and thrive, we have to make sure that these three agendas are working very well together. So if we are giving more attention to one than another, if there's one of these agendas that's winning, then that's going to be starting to take away from one of the other agendas. And if we're as the locals, we're kind of at the heart of all of this. And if we're we have to love this place the most, because everyone else who's coming is coming with their expectations and pushing their expectations down on us. So what we need to do is we need to love our community the most. We need to be the experts of our own place and our own reasons for being here. So every time we make a decision around a social issue, there's going to be consequence. And in the process of that consequence, we have vulnerability. I'm making a lot of noise up here. We have vulnerability. That's a big word. And everyone has their own definition of what that word is. And there's a lot of elements out there that can become vulnerable. As humans, there's vulnerability. From the environment perspective, there's vulnerability. And so what we have to do in our decision making, ensure that we're identifying all of those vulnerabilities that are going to play out. And certainly we've seen a lot of challenges around vulnerability in the last couple of years with regards to housing and transportation and social issues. So when we look at sort of that perfect triad of thriving, you want to have stable housing, you want to have stable food, and you want to have social inclusion. And I think that it's what we love about this place, but vulnerability is attracted here because people think that they're going to come here and they're going to have this amazing experience, they're going to have lots of friends, they're going to fit in, and their life's going to be really good. So that, and when it doesn't happen, then that creates an additional vulnerability. So by identifying in our decision making what we're putting at risk, we can then start to put the protective layers in place. So from our perspective, what we believe are the vulnerabilities going forward is young families. We're starting to see a lot of young families having babies. We have baby boom now in the whole corridor. Super exciting. People are making this their home, but it also means that if they're not able to have stable housing, to have social inclusion, to have an affordable lifestyle, then that's going to start to play out in different vulnerabilities within their family unit. We're starting to see high anxiety and high mental health challenges around our youth and our young adult population. Those agendas that are all colliding, that seasonal worker, they're coming to us with different skill sets than they have in the past. And we're starting to see more of a parenting requirement by the employers here in order to make that population thrive. And so that's changing the dynamic as well. So I would say we're starting to see increased anxiety and mental health in our young adult population, but that's also transferring into our employers' population because more is being asked of them. More is being asked of them of the tourist agenda, more is being asked of them of the seasonal worker agenda. And so when it comes back to them sort of protecting themselves and protecting their business, they're starting to ask those big questions about what is it I want and what is it that I can really possibly give. So I think going forward, it's exciting times. We, once again, have to be the experts of our own destiny. We have to care more about our community than anybody else. Every day we're outnumbered 3, 4 to 1 of everybody who's coming here. So we have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. And we kind of have to set the ground rules around that. And so Whistler Community Services was spawned by creativity and a caring for the community. We have a model at Whistler Community Services where we have the Reuse It Center and the Rebuild It Center that fund what we do on the social service side. That's super creative and incredible and something that we should all be very, very proud of. So it allows us to move quickly into those social challenges, and I believe it's something that we have that's a strength and an asset going forward. And so I'm delighted to have been offered the opportunity to talk tonight, and I think that as a community, we're passionate and we care, and as humans, this is the greatest place to live.